Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a little after 6:30 p.m. on June 25th, 2019, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Villa Park City Council. I hereby call the meeting to order. Steve, will you please call the roll? Actually, before that, can you, I'd like to ask our city attorney to report out on closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. We did discuss the items on the agenda, which is 3 cases under significant exposure to litigation, and there's no reportable action.
Okay. All right, and then, Steve, would you please call the roll, and then we'll do the pledge?
Councilman Colacott?
Here.
Councilman Miles?
Here.
Councilman Zimmerman is joining us, teleconferencing from Catalina Island. And he will be, as a result, he'll be interacting with us, and you'll see him on his screen there. He has publicly noticed this meeting, and he has access there. If you need to, you can turn the camera and show that there's people there. If people want to speak, there's an opportunity. As a result of him teleconferencing, just as for the record, all of our votes this evening will be conducted on a roll call vote, and we will not be using the electronic voting system. With that, Mayor Pro Tem Pitts
Here.
and Mayor Rossini,
Here.
all accounted for.
All right, I would like everybody to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Address the flag. Stand proudly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Thank you. At this time, I would ask all those in the audience to please silence your cell phones or turn them off if possible. The Villa Park City Council and staff welcome you to this meeting. We encourage your participation. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete and submit a speaker card to the City Clerk before the scheduled meeting time. Speaker cards are located in the rear of the room, and they can be found at the entrance to the City Council chambers. Speakers will be limited to a time period of 5 minutes. Before we get started with that, we're going to have presentations. The first presentation is going to be to the Orange County Fire Authority in recognition of the wildfire awareness and prevention season. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our Division Chief, Phil Johnson, to the podium here, and we'll present this proclamation, and then let's hear from him about that, because he's the expert. Let's go ahead and have him present and talk about what that means, and then we'll take a photo right afterwards.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and other guests. We are in wildfire season here in Southern California, and we have declared this wildfire prevention proclamation. Here in Southern California, let alone Orange County, it is so vitally important that we have our homes hardened to wildfire, let alone our fuel trimmed from around our homes, as well as having all of your stuff packed up, or at least a plan of what you're going to take with you in case you need to evacuate. And finally, evacuate early. Do not wait for the warning to come in. Have an evacuation plan, where you're going to go, where you're going to stay, and at least have a go bag with you that will last 72 hours with food, water, and medications, and all of that sort. For further information, please go onto our website at ocfa.org, and we have the Ready, Set, Go program, which you can get on there. We can even come out and do a home evaluation for you and give you some tips and tricks and pointers on what should be done. And you can also do a self-evaluation through the information on our website. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I could have the council come forward, we'll take a photo.
Come on, Frank, you can do this.
Councilman Zimmerman, sorry about that.
Are you going to bring his head? I mean,
We will be joined later by the Orange County Supervisor for the 3rd District, Don Wagner. I have been told that he is en route. We look forward to hearing from him on a number of issues, including airport expansion at John Wayne Airport. Let's go ahead and start off with our other presentations and the Orange County Sheriff's Department, please. Lieutenant Rich.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city staff, and audience members. My name is Lieutenant Patrick Rich, and it is my pleasure to present the monthly crime statistics for the month of May 2019 for the city of Villa Park. Last month we had 2 reportable Part 1 crimes, which is kind of incredible. They were both grand thefts, and the first one was reported on 528, and that was on the 9,000 block of Brymar Drive. A victim reported that he had a loss of jewelry and household items that he believed had been stolen by a caregiver over the past couple months. The second incident was reported on 524, and that was the 19,000 block of Cerro Villa Drive, and that was where some power tools and other tools were taken out of the back of a trunk of a vehicle that was left parked on the street, and the trunk was left open during that time. That was interrupted by the owner of the vehicle. We had 3 traffic accidents reported during that time. The first one was on the 20th, and that was at Taft Center. There was a pedestrian was lightly struck by a vehicle and was transported to the hospital with very minor injuries at his request. The second was on 5-7 at Lemon and Villa Park Road. This was a non-injury 3-vehicle chain reaction collision. And then on the 3rd at the 18,000 block of Taft, there was a vehicle that was struck while making a left-hand turn, and there was a second vehicle that was driving on the wrong side of the road trying to bypass some traffic. One of the occupants of the vehicle that was struck was transported to the hospital with very minor non-life-threatening injuries. Deputies during that time period issued 36 traffic citations and 11 parking citations. We did respond to or initiate 391 calls for service. 135 of those calls for service were calls are assigned to the deputies, and 256 of those incidents were officer initiated. On the 31st, there was an incident at the high school where a student reported that he had overheard a couple groups of students talking about a potential school violence incident. The SMART team, our school mobile assessment resource team, did respond out in the middle of the night. They were able to identify the students with the help of school officials, made contacts at those students' home, and that was determined to be unsubstantiated, and those students had no access to any weapons. The only other thing I have to talk about is Deputy Benzie and the Sheriff's Department had the pleasure of being out at Serrano Elementary and Villa Park Elementary on the 7th of June for their annual camp out. The canines were able to go out there and give a presentation, and the helicopter did a flyover. So it seems like the kids, the parents, and Deputy Benzie in all his glory had a very nice night. That is all I have to report on, but I would be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, there was a collision at Roberto in Collins within the past month between a motorcycle and a City of Orange fire truck. I realize the actual collision took place just outside the city limits, but that is one of our entrances into Villa Park, and we've had at least one other fatality there in the past, plus I understand a number of other collisions have occurred in that area in the past. Do you have any information on that incident, or?
I don't. We were not the responding agency.
Correct,
Orange PD actually had the California Highway Patrol come out and assist them with the investigation. I did go by to determine jurisdiction at the time and offer our assistance if they needed it. They did not. It appears that the fire truck was making a turn, and the subject on the motorcycle was coming down the hill at a very high rate of speed and was unable to avoid the collision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we'll have the Orange County Fire Authority if you have anything further. Okay. All right.
And I would like to report that we have on the agenda that the OCFA Fire Chief will be here today. He has a conflict, so he will be here in our July meeting, and I think the mayor has arranged that he'll be here to have a proper introduction on that day.
That is correct. Next, we have Villa Park Library. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Shauna Carlos, the branch manager of the Villa Park Library. And our season is off to a great start for our summer reading program. Last month, we had a 9% increase in the circulation of materials at the library. We also had a slight increase in the number of library cards that we issued. And our summer reading program started on the 17th of June. It will go through the 27th of July. We've had a lot of really generous donations this year, so we've been able to provide some really great programs for the community. Our friends of the Villa Park Library, Villa Park Community Services Foundation, and the National Charity League have all contributed to our summer reading program. And so has our neighbor, the UPS store, gave us a really great discount on getting some last-minute printing done. So we were able to send out event flyers with all the students at Villa Park Elementary on their last day of school. Their librarian put that all together, so that was a great bonus for us. So far, we have 124 children registered for the program, 14 teens. We're still working on getting the teens in the library, but we have 96 adults, and that was a goal for us this year, was to get more adults involved, and we only had 52 last year for the whole time, so that's pretty exciting. Tomorrow, we have Annie Banani, a balloon storyteller, coming. She'll be here at 4 o'clock, and she performs for libraries and schools all across the country, so we're excited about having her here. A little known fact about Annie is that she is married to Buster Balloon, and as if that doesn't sound good enough, they were in the Ripley's Believe It or Not in 2008 because Annie made a balloon wedding dress. So bring your kids tomorrow at 4. In July, we have 2 new programs. We're offering a Tech Mondays. That will be from 3 to 4 o'clock. And patrons are invited to bring in their gadgets and learn how to download audiobooks, movies, and things from the library and get some help with that. We're also hosting a meetup for teens on Thursdays over the summer at noon. And on July 13th, you'll want to come and see Andre Geraldo, and he will be playing classical guitar music. His program will include music from Brazil, France, Argentina, and Russia. And he's a really great performer. That will be July 13th at 3:30 if you can come. And then our big party at the very end of our program is on Saturday, July 27th. And do you have any questions for me?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Congratulations on your recent marriage.
Thank you very much. I'll be twisting my name around for a while as I get used to it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you for everything.
Of course, thanks.
Congratulations.
All right, next, we have council member meeting attendance reports, Orange County mosquito and vector control.
Okay, again, going off just the posted minutes, what I found, there was a lot of administrative stuff they did. There was discussion about West Nile virus and the invasive Aedes mosquito, that there's been no West Nile virus, no new activity in Orange County, but they do have positive mosquitoes that have been collected in Riverside County. There's something called a heat map, which they can access. You can access on the website, and it shows exactly where some of these Aedes mosquitoes have been located, and there have been ones located in the heart of Villa Park. So Vector Control urges that if you have an issue with standing water, or maybe a neighbor has, or you want them to come out and assess your property, and or you have a complaint, or you've noticed that these aggressive mosquitoes are around, you can call them at 714-971-2421, or go on the website, which is www.ocvector.org, And then that last, there was an assessment that they had discussed, that they were working on approving, and it did get approved. So there's going to be $1.82 increase for every residential dwelling unit that's going to be added. That's it.
Thank you for your report. Any questions? Next, we have Orange County Sanitation District.
And that's me. The Operations Committee of the Sanitation District Board of Directors met on June 5th, and we discussed and approved routine operations and maintenance items. But then on June 20th, the Headquarters Complex Ad Hoc Committee, which I established, met to receive and recommend authorization of the 35% design of the proposed headquarters complex. The Sanitation District Administration Building, where it's currently located, is obsolete and in need of repair, so they need to have a new complex building. Plus they have, I think, a large complex of trailers where their professional engineering staff has been housed for over 20 years. So we need to have permanent facilities for the staff. Anyway, the complex is scheduled for completion in 2023. So with the review at the meeting on the 20th, I requested that staff return with a set of recommendations to compress the project completion schedule. Those of you may have read the Register this morning and seen that the City of Hope is proposing to build a new complex in Irvine. It'll be much larger than our office complex that we're proposing for the Sanitation District, and they're going to be complete in 2021. So I think we can accelerate that completion schedule and put the assets that we've already invested to good use. Just by way of information, this project is going to be $167.5 million for construction of this new complex. Anyway, I have the design information that was presented by the architect, and I'll share this with the city council members.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything further?
No, that'll be it.
Okay.
Is there a tour of the centrifuge tomorrow also?
Pardon?
There's a tour of the centrifuge facility tomorrow also, is that correct?
A
Tour of the
facility.
centrifuge facility
Yeah,
tomorrow.
tour of the centrifuge
Yes.
facility tomorrow.
I don't know that that's tomorrow.
You've probably already seen it. I won't be able to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's scheduled for tomorrow. I think that's in July.
All right, any further questions? The next committee report would be from the Orange County Library Advisory Board Liaison.
No meeting,
Okay. City Schools Advisory,
also no meeting.
Community Development.
Community Development. The Community Development Committee met on June 3rd. And I think the key interest or item to report on is that staff identified several small lots that are less than 12,000 square feet that may still be zoned as E4. In other words, E4 is designated or designed to apply to large lots that are 20,000 square feet or larger. And this zoning is, when it's applied to a smaller lot, is pretty restrictive and inflexible for owners of those small lots if they want to do various improvements like a patio addition or a room addition or whatever. So we're considering, we'll be at our next meeting considering rezoning of these lots to improve the homeowners' flexibility to so that they can improve their properties with less oversight.
Thank you. Next, we have Friends of the Villa Park Library.
Friends of the Library met on June 6th, and other than what Shauna described in her library meeting, I was just going to add that the Friends of the Library is still looking for a site for their fundraiser. If anybody has any suggestions, pass them along. That's all.
Thank you. Next, we have Infrastructure Management Advisory.
No report?
Investment Advisory.
No meeting till July 17th.
Law Enforcement Advisory, that meeting was postponed until next month, date to be determined. And Villa Park Community Services Foundation.
The foundation board met on May 22nd. Some events that are upcoming that everyone should have on their calendar, hopefully, is the 4th of July Parade, which is always fun here in Villa Park. I think lineup starts at 8:30 at the high school. So encourage everybody to bring their bicycles and their floats and their lawn tractors and their John Deeres, and so we can all have a good time.
Bikes are getting prepared right now.
Yeah, that's cool. And there's judging too, right? Yep. Also underway is a new website development that's underway with the foundation. They're developing a new website that they're quite excited about, with new informational ideas and things like that will go out. And membership drive is still underway, so encourage everybody that hasn't to please join. That's it. Thank you. And there actually is a meeting tomorrow night too.
Okay. And then we have the Bridges at Kramer.
Meeting is tomorrow.
Okay. I don't believe I've missed any, but if I have, speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, hearing none, let's move on to public comments. At this time, members of the public may address the city council on any off-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and 30 minutes for all comments. Steve, do we have any cards?
I've received no comments, no requests to speak at this point.
Okay.
I also have checked with people at the helm, and there is no request for public comment here.
And, well, we'd like to welcome at this time the supervisor for the 3rd District, Don Wagner, who, with an incredibly busy schedule, has decided to join us and share some information about what's going on in the 3rd District, and in particular about the airport expansion. Welcome and thank you for coming.
Well, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And yeah, I have been busy. This is my 3rd stop for the evening, but I did want to make sure I had an opportunity to come by, and especially to address the issue of the General Aviation Improvement Plan for John Wayne that was voted on just this afternoon by the Board of Supervisors. And we did receive a letter from you, Mr. Mayor, on the subject of no expansion of John Wayne Airport. We heard loud and clear from the residents of some of the cities that are even closer to the airport, Newport Beach, which of course has lived under the takeoff flight plan and the settlement agreement for years. We also heard from the mayors and city councils from around the area. And the good news that I have to report is that the voices of the community were heard. No expansion of John Wayne Airport. In fact, hot off the press is an article from the Orange County Register. County chooses redesign plan for John Wayne Airport, smaller planes, giving more space to Cessnas and less to corporate jets, which may make residents happier. I'm certainly hoping it does. Briefly, what was done today is approve a plan that keeps in place just 2, not 3, of these so-called FBOs. FBO stands for fixed base operators. Those are the private terminals that deal with mostly jet, though not exclusively corporate jet and private jet flights. And so there are 2 currently. The plan that was approved today will keep 2 in place rather than going for 3, which conceivably would have been an expansion of John Wayne Airport, or at least of its capacity. The field itself is limited in terms of space. No new space is contemplated. No new space is available absent eminent domain, and there is zero talk of taking some steps to, in fact, bring more space, more land into John Wayne. So its footprint remains the same. The number of FBOs servicing the corporate and private jets remains the same. And in fact, the configuration that was approved today expands the opportunity for the hangar capacity and the so-called tie-downs for the smaller, the lighter, the piston planes, the Cessnas of the world. This is a deal that we had about an hour and a half of public testimony about. But included in that public testimony was the mayor and one of the city councilmen from Newport Beach saying we approve this plan. Included in that testimony was the executive director of the airport working group that has been responsible for the settlement agreement with John Wayne from years back, an old friend of mine, Barbara Litchman, who approves this plan. And at the end of the vote, it went 5-0. So you can take satisfaction, I hope. Your voice, your letter was heard, and we heard the residents. What was completely untouched in this plan today was anything to do with commercial aviation. So there, again, will be no changes to the commercial aviation. No new flights are going to be landing over Villa Park and the surrounding communities than exist currently. Would we be able to roll it back at some point? I did learn there's a lawsuit filed by LA County against the FAA over their regional redo of all of the flight paths in the entire Southern California area. Don't know the status of that litigation or its prospects for success, but it is out there. I think what folks need to hear today, though, in Villa Park and surrounding communities is the Board of Supervisors took zero action today to bring more planes over your head, more noise into your homes, and more of the pollutants that come out of the sky from the jet fuel into your backyards and into your neighborhoods. That's really the biggest item that was in front of the board today. If anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to try to answer them. But I am very pleased to give this report to you and to the entire Villa Park community because we heard you, no expansion of John Wayne, and we think we've set the airport on a path for sustained viability for the next 30 to 40 years.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
Greatly appreciate it. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for
Anything else
coming.
going on in Villa Park I need to know about or you want to know about?
All quiet.
Steve?
Quiet is the way. You guys are doing a great job if it's quiet.
Summertime.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank
Carving out
you
some
all.
time for us.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to public hearings. That's certainly a bit of fantastic news for Villa Park residents, and I don't think it's detrimental to business or our travel plans. It just keeps the noise to a minimum and the pollutants. So thank you very much, Board of Supervisors and Don Wagner for that. Let's begin with item 2, waive reading in full of all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda. First hearing is to do that, and now we'll open the hearing. Steve, please give the staff report.
This is the monthly report in order to expedite the meetings and recommend approval.
Council members, questions? Anyone to speak? Council members, any discussion? Close the public hearing. Please vote.
Well, we need a
Oh,
motion.
excuse me.
Motion.
A motion. Got a little ahead of myself there.
Motion to approve.
Second on that.
Okay, so, hold on, we're doing it manually today because
Oh,
we
roll
don't
call.
have an electronic
Roll
system
call,
and
yeah.
we're making some accommodations.
Thanks,
for
Chad.
everything. So, with that, we'll go through Councilman Colacott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Miles,
Yes.
Councilman Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts,
Yes.
Mayor Rossini.
Yes.
Passes by a 5-0 vote.
Next public hearing is item 3. The next hearing is the consideration of the fiscal year 2019-2020 operating budget and 7-year capital improvement program, appropriating revenue and establishing the appropriations limit for the fiscal year 2019-2020 and amending the salaries and benefits resolution. I will now open the hearing. Steve, please give the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is the work of a lot of staff and a lot of hours over the last several months, of culmination of work that started probably back in January, candidly. We had, as you'll recall, 2 public budget study sessions on May 7th and June 4th, at which time we discussed and reviewed the various assumption and proposals and the concerns of the council and made it available to the public. The Budget itself has revenues of 4.5 million, or 4.6 million, and expenditures of 4.9, which basically, the difference is there's carryover revenues from prior years that fund that. With this action today, should it be approved by the council, the general fund will have an undesignated reserve balance of approximately 1.8 million, which represents a total of 50% of our general fund operating expenses and will be consistent with the policy set by this council several years ago. The recommended action today includes a multitude of appropriations and revenue estimates. But in essence, it will also approve a GAN limit, which is a limit of spending that we have to approve each year. So there's a resolution to take that effect. There's also and that GAN limit we are under, so we're under state law that says we have to stay under a certain expenditure limit. Also, the action here will be reflecting a revised salary resolution, which basically authorizes the payment of our staff and the holidays, et cetera, that we're allowed to have each year. It is consistent with the exception of the salary merit pool that's been added. Otherwise, it'd be very consistent. The actions today, again, will adopt the budget that begins July 1st and goes through June 30th. And as a note, that we will be, for clarification, we will be spending well under our budget this year, and I would expect that next year we'll do it just as well and look for efforts to continue to be economy and be a good steward of the taxpayers' money. The city council has been extremely conservative over the years, and that has helped put Villa Park in a very enviable financial position. And the actions being taken and recommended to you tonight, based on your direction, will continue that direction for us. And I believe will have us in very good standing financially, and the residents can be assured that we're in good shape. So the action tonight would be to approve our proposed budget, and also to approve the resolution 2019-3463, which is our salary and benefits resolution I mentioned, and resolution 2019-3462, it's the adoption of the GAN limit. And that is a typo on the budget on the GAN limit. So anyway, that's what we'll be doing, and that's the action recommended for you today. And both Frank Davies and myself are here, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank all of you to start for your time, because there's a lot of effort that you have just studying and telling me all your concerns and going through and meeting with the residents. And secondarily, the various advisory groups that we have, particularly the infrastructure advisory group, took time to make recommendations. And lastly, I really want to thank staff here who have taken the time and really focused their efforts. Both Frank Davies and Twee Cure have pulled this and made this their personal projects, and a considerable effort. Although I'll have to admit the most creative thing they've done each year is almost a challenge to come up with a new cover for the book each year, but you'll see that they did that. And I will take a little bit of heat here, but one of the first renditions had pictures of all 5 of you on the front. I decided that probably wasn't something that we should probably do on the budget document. But anyway, I do credit, that's our Alyssa and Twee did that work. And I think we'll be very proud of the document, and there'll be hard copies will be available, go to print after you take action this evening. And then we also have links to it on our website currently, so should anyone want to see it, they can actually look at it right now or print it out at any time they should want to. So that's my report. Frank and I are available to answer any questions.
I just wanted to thank you and thank Frank and the rest of the staff in spending a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of effort in looking at the numbers, going over what our policy recommendations are from the dais here. And I want to thank my fellow council members. We may have policy differences, but our policy differences never turned into personal differences. And I think that was incredibly important to note, that this council worked together to try to achieve common goals for the benefit of our residents. And even though we still may have some policy differences, we are looking forward to passing this. And I think I just wanted to thank everybody here. We even had folks that had to remote in because they're on business trips, and they made those arrangements, much as Councilman Zimmerman is here today. Mayor Pro Tem Pitts, thank you. and everybody for their sound ideas. That's all I have. I'm going to open that up to questions of staff for council members. Councilman Zimmerman, do you have any questions, sir?
I don't. Thank you for asking, and thank you also for your input, and to all the other council members too. I echo your words.
Councilwoman Miles.
No, no, I concur with what you said, Mayor, and want to thank staff as well.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts.
Just echo what everybody says. You guys put in a lot of hours putting this together. And the various renditions that we looked at, you know, you all spent the time to sit down and talk to us about the things that you were working on, the compromises and so forth. And we really appreciate Frank, you and the staff and everybody else for all the hard work. We really do.
And last but not least, the gentleman that ranks highest in seniority here, by all means.
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that I'm very proud of Villa Park. Villa Park, when we were incorporated in 1962, we had less than 900 residents, and the objective was to keep our city small and to live within our means, and once again, we're doing it. We have very limited revenue. We get by almost entirely on property tax revenue, and most city managers will tell you you can't run a city just on property tax, but we're doing it every year. Also, I read in the Register just the other day that the city of Anaheim was getting ready to adopt their budget, and their budget is $2 billion with a B dollars. Ours is a little over $5 million. So we're about 0.25% of Anaheim's budget. We have a much more limited government than they have, and that's by our choice. We run Villa Park to be just to be the bare bones, just provide the basics, ma'am, and thank you very much. And we'll do well, and we have, and I think we have a very fine community because of it, and I'm proud that we're doing what we're doing.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and open this to any public speakers at this time. Any public comment on the budget? Anyone here to speak on it? No? Bring it back to council. I'd like to entertain a motion,
I move that we approve this budget.
and I'll second it.
Okay, we'll do a
Roll call.
roll call vote. Councilman Colacott,
Yes.
Councilman Miles,
Yes.
Councilman Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts,
Yes.
Mayor Rossini.
Yes.
Okay, well, that concludes and we'll adoption. Thank you very much. And we'll have printed copies available should somebody be interested. I would real quickly like to, he enjoyed it so much, he came back for more. Supervisor Wagner wanted to come back and you were such a good audience. I'm like to entertain him for a few more minutes.
Welcome back.
I'm back, and I apologize. I was so excited to tell you all about the good news out of John Wayne. That there really are two other issues that I do think we ought to take up with this council and the residents of Villa Park. And it's been a long day. We had a long council meeting. It started at 9, and as I said, this is my third event of the evening. So apologies for being a bit scattered, but I think you should know two things. One, there's a very nice picture of Irvine Lake on the wall over there. And what I have to report to you today is that at our board meeting today, we approved the next step in what is an imminent reopening of Irvine Lake to all of the citizens of Orange County. We're going to get fishing back on that lake before the end of summer. The county is committed to spending multiple hundreds actually of thousands of dollars to remediate it. It's been lying fallow for about 4 years now. I walked it just last Friday. We have deals in place with the Serrano Water District. We have deals that are almost in place. The lawyers are fussing with the last couple of commas with the Irvine Ranch Water District, which has rights out there. We expect that we will be able to get fishing back out there before the end of summer, with boating hopefully to follow, with trails around the park, with camping coming at some point soon. We intend to stock it once the biologists tell us the water is cool and the trout can survive, which I'm told will be later in the fall. But I want to make sure that you folks know we are real close to getting that wonderful county resource back open to the public. And I got to tell you, I walked it the other day, and I can't wait to be out there for a ribbon cutting. And I hope all of you can join us. And if it's not July, it's going to be early August. So I wanted to report that as well. And then the other thing I wanted to take up, because I do know it is an issue here in Villa Park, is the issue of sober living homes, which has been a growing issue of concern throughout Orange County. The issue with the sober living homes is simple. There are a whole number of folks who are suffering from addiction and the related pathologies with addiction who are in need of remedial care, and they're in need of places to live. The flip side of that is that there are neighborhoods that have and want to protect their unique character and characteristic. And so what we have done today was approve an ordinance to go to our planning commission that tries to balance those various interests, that looks at what can be done to make sure that these homes fit within the character of a neighborhood, realizing that we're not writing on a blank slate. There's a lot of state law, there's a lot of federal law that limits what can be done. And so what we were trying to do is walk a balance that respects the rights of the community to protect the neighborhoods and to protect the schools that are around the neighborhoods and to otherwise make sure that the character of the places they bought, that they live, that they want to raise families in, is in fact what they bought into, while recognizing that there are folks out there with serious challenges in their lives who need the sorts of help that responsibly run sober living homes can provide. And so we have sent to the Planning Commission just today an ordinance that seeks to strike that balance. And so what I would say to you and to the residents of Villa Park is that if you want to weigh in on that ordinance, it's available to you online. I wish I knew, I don't remember off the top of my head when the Planning Commission meets, but if you want to provide some input, the Planning Commission for the County of Orange will be dealing with that issue shortly. It is in response to both the concerns we've heard from our constituents and a recognition of the rights and the efforts of folks to get their lives back together. And so that moved forward today. It was a big day, actually, at the board meeting, and I appreciate the opportunity to give you the update on it.
We appreciate
How many
it.
questions?
I just want to thank you for your leadership. That is tremendous news. Both with, I see a hand in the back there, both with Irvine Lake. I really look forward to bringing my kids out there and having a picnic with the whole family. And that's just such a tremendous resource. And I really appreciate the leadership on that. And it's obviously sober living homes. They litter many communities, and some are responsible, and some do the right thing, but some don't. And those that, as I use the term litter, those that aren't responsible really are somewhat of a blight on the community, and that's unfortunate. So the fact that, again, the board is showing leadership in tackling that issue is critically important to the rest of us. So thank you again. And we have one question in the back there, by all means.
Yes, ma'am. There is a
critical in legislation that cities can
it is permissible in the law, as I understand it, to have a 1,000-foot setback, that these homes cannot be within 1,000 feet of principally schools. And the opportunity, the idea, of course, is to provide a little bit of a buffer. Actually, that's 1,000 feet, if you actually do the math and draw the circles, is a fairly substantial buffer. And so that is a critical component and one of the things the courts will allow us to do is enforce that. It'll also allow us, as you say, Mr. Mayor, with the issue of litter, is enforce the, for lack of a better phrase, the CC&Rs of a particular neighborhood or the ordinances of a particular city council, to take those operators who may not be as responsible as they otherwise would be, and insist upon them, in fact, being responsible operators and making sure that they are keeping the neighborhoods clean, making sure that they're not allowing their residents to run roughshod over the rights of the residents, of the neighbors, of the folks in the neighborhood, without actually saying, you've got to get out of here. Because, again, these are a valuable component to sobriety and the continued success of folks who are genuinely trying to get their lives back in order.
Thank you very much.
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet. Thank you very
right.
much.
Thank
Thanks
you all.
again for your leadership.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Dinner time.
Have a good evening. Next, we have our consent calendar, items 4 through 11. All items on the consent calendar are considered routine and are enacted by one motion, approving the recommended action listed on the agenda. Any member of the city council staff or the public may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion or separate action. Unless otherwise specified in the request to remove an item from the consent calendar, all items removed shall be considered immediately following action on the remaining items on the consent calendar. Would anybody like to remove items 4 through 11? No. Anybody in the audience? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Please vote.
Okay. All right, so we'll go again. Councilman Colacott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Miles,
Yes.
Councilman Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts,
Yes.
Mayor Rossini.
Yes.
So items 4 through 11 are passed.
Next, we have item 12 in old business. Our first item of old business is the authorization of Councilman Colacott to attend the City of Orange Planning Commission hearing on the Trails at Santiago Creek project.
Before we start on that, if we may, just for the record, Councilwoman Miles can participate on this item. The Sully Miller, as an entity, is not involved in the development of this project, so she fully can participate and has no conflict of interest, for the record.
So we discussed this item in closed session, and I would recommend that the item be deleted from the agenda at this time.
I don't have any objections to that. Do any other council members have any comment on that matter? Councilman Zimmerman, do you have any comment on that matter?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any members of the public want to comment on that? Seeing none? Do we need a motion to delete that, Todd?
No.
Okay. So deleted then. Next, we have item 13, the city manager report.
Okay, this represents the monthly report. I do have 2 items that I do need for the record by ordinance to report, and I did report one of these to the CDC. Pursuant to, there's authority in the city manager pursuant to section 23-20.12 of the Villa Park zoning ordinance. I have the authority to adjust the interiors, the setbacks within a prescribed limit. And I took action on both 10242 Camden Circle, and I took action relative to, and I'm going to, 10262 Camden Circle. They're actually neighbors who are developing, putting arbors up, I believe. So those 2 items were approved, but by the ordinance, I have to announce that in a public meeting, so I'm doing that at this point. And I obviously have information should anybody want to see their details of that.
And I'm sorry, did you say arbors that they're putting up?
Basically coverings for the barbecue.
Okay, thank you.
I guess that's, for lack of better words, I don't know really what the words are.
Sounds correct to me. I just,
Basically, coverings
hear you.
for the backyard, separate from the house.
thank you.
So those are, separate from that, obviously, it's a monthly report. I'm available to answer any questions, and the matrix is there. Should anybody have any questions, I'm free to answer.
Members of the council, do you have any questions? No. Comments?
time.
Members of the public, do you have any questions or comments? Steve, thank you for your report. Item number 14, mayor and council member matters. Now we will discuss the council member requested item about the adoption of a code of ethics and discrimination and harassment policies.
You'll recall that this item was discussed at the March 28th meeting, and at that time, there was a code of ethics, and we continued the item till April 23rd. At that time, there was further direction provided, and they also, Councilman Colacott said that we needed to come back with a discrimination policy or harassment policy, anti-discrimination, anti-harassment. I don't want to, we don't have a policy how to do it, it's how to not to do it. My apologies there. Anyway.
Not a how-to.
Anyway, bottom line, these are now, these are revisions based on the input provided by you both. It has been reviewed by our legal counsel, and he and I are both available to answer any questions. These are very similar documents you've seen with minor tweaks and changes to reflect input received in those past two meetings. So either Todd or I are available to answer any questions. We recommend approval.
Council members, I'll take you one at a time. Any comments? Councilwoman Miles?
No, not at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts?
No, sir.
Councilmember Colacott?
I'd like to compliment Councilman Pitts for raising the issue of an ethics policy in the first place. It's something we needed. I understand most cities and other governmental agencies have such documents. So I think it's a step forward for our city, and thank you for taking the leadership on that.
Councilmember Zimmerman, sir.
I think we've made all our comments previously. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyone from the public want to speak on this? See none. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second?
Roll call, please.
So the second was, I'm sorry.
Oh, whatever.
I beat him.
Okay, so Councilman Colacott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Miles,
Yes.
Councilman Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts,
Yes.
Mayor Rossini.
Yes.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you for your.
And those will be posted on our website as requested by the mayor last meeting, or when we discussed this in April. So they'll be posted within this week on our website, should anybody be interested in seeing those.
Thank you very much. Next, item 15. Now we will discuss the amendment to the city travel policy. Council members, actually, Steve, would you give us a little background on this, please?
This is, at the April meeting, you'll recall that we adopted a revised travel policy. And that policy, at that time, we addressed a couple of issues relative to traveling in the local Southern California area and requiring approval and payment of actual expenses and those types of things. So this item is being brought back at the request of yourself, Mayor, and Councilwoman Miles, so I'll defer to you in your specific direction or action you'd like to take.
Oh, I'm going to defer to Councilwoman Miles for the majority of this, but I think it's just time that we perhaps tweak what our existing policy is, make sure it's compliant with current spending, and make sure that we give council members that travel the freedom that they need to make intelligent choices. At the same time, we're mindful of the fiscal impacts on our city.
Thank you. So the travel policy as it states right now sets a limit for breakfast, sets a limit for lunch, and sets a limit for dinner, which for someone who's either a city staff or an elected official who's traveling for the city, let's say they perhaps land on a Sunday somewhere, and in the environment that they're in, there happens to be a very expensive brunch. Well, if you only get 15 for breakfast and 30 for lunch, and let's say it's, you know, a $50 brunch, it doesn't really fit in the travel policy. So what I would like to see is that there's just a cap of the $85 to be spent. It's a use it or lose it policy. You don't get to carry it over. You don't get to get change back. But that $85, you're able to discern if you want to spend 50 for lunch and, you know, 30 for dinner. It's just that it loosens the restriction on how much they have per meal.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain comments from council at this time. Councilmember Colacott?
No comments.
Councilman Zimmerman?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts?
My company has a similar policy to what you talked about, as a per diem per day. I think the only consideration I would suggest would be that you consider raising the limit, because in some cities, it's very difficult if you were to eat 3 meals a day to hit $85. You're upwards of $100, $120 a day. I mean, our company offers $120 a day because of some of the cities that you have to travel in and some of the restaurants that you're sometimes forced to eat in, that type of thing. So you go to Palm Springs, it's not cheap there. You go to, Sacramento's not too bad, but in other large cities like LA and places like that, it's expensive, especially for dinner. I can't, and most hotels cannot eat a breakfast for $15. I travel all the time. So I would suggest that we consider a higher limit, but it's a per diem per day. Because I don't want anyone to take money out of their pocket when we're asking them to travel, to take money out of their pocket and pay for things, if that makes sense.
May I? So there's actually a website, it's 2019 federal per diem rates, and it's federalpay.org, and it actually gives guidelines as to where you travel. So if you're traveling to Washington, D.C., if you're traveling in California, and actually you'd be surprised that we are more generous than what the federal per diem rates suggest. So I think it's, I can pull it up, but I think for California it was 65 or something a day for food, and then 100 and something for, let me see if I can find it, for lodging. So California, here it is. If you're in California, the average meal per diem rate is $62.86, and for lodging it's $126.28. So, but I have no problem if we were to come to an agreement on what to increase it, because I think that these are kind of probably not, even though it says 2019, may not be very accurate. But I do want people to recognize there are actual federal guidelines as to what the rate should be. But I also agree that, it's probably pretty difficult. So I'm open, to, coming up to some number in the middle.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and just suspend comment here and hear from the public, and then we'll bring it back if that's okay with everybody. Anybody in the public want to comment on this matter? Okay. Councilman Zimmerman, do you have any comments?
No, nothing further, thank you.
Councilmember Colacott.
Considering the dollar amounts that we're talking about are exclude alcohol, because alcohol is prohibited from reimbursement, I think the limits that are proposed are appropriate. I don't think I've ever had to spend anything close to that, but
Okay.
and typically when we're on travel, it's associated with a conference or something, and oftentimes lunches and breakfasts are provided as part of the conference cost, so I think we're okay.
Thank you. Steve, just a refresher, can you just give, for the benefit of the public, a review of what the current policy is and potentially what we might be changing it to?
Sure. With respect to the expenses?
Yes, please.
The current policy, again, it's actual expenses, and its amount not to exceed $15 for breakfast, $20 for lunch, and $50 for dinner, including tips, for a daily aggregate that does not exceed $85 per person. Obviously, the individual meal or daily aggregate may be increased to the extent of covering a higher cost is required as part of a scheduled. If you're going to a lunch and the entity is charging you $90, then it can be increased type of thing. Alcoholic beverages, as mentioned by Councilman Colacott, are not reimbursable, and that is the current policy relative to reimbursement. Again, that's a policy. It's up to the discretion of the council to set those rates.
I'm going to defer to the member of the council, our Mayor Pro Tem on this one, in my opinion. He travels probably the most out of all of us. And I too have been in situations where I was rather astonished at how much a brunch or a dinner costs when you're stuck at a conference and in a hotel. And I think that since Councilwoman Miles is amenable, if she's amenable, I'd like just to amend it to $100,
Sure.
a flat number. I think that obviously our goal as public officials is to come well under that number if at all possible. But in those situations where our options are limited, where travel away from the venue may be incurring additional costs to the taxpayers rather than eating there, that might need to be taken into consideration. So I think an even $100, I think, gives council members and staff the flexibility that they may need, and comports with the reality of being in a place like Palm Springs or some other venue. If that is amenable, I'd like to make a motion for $100 even.
I'll second.
So all other provisions of the travel reimbursement. So just for clarification,
Yeah, let's be clear. It's
the $100
it's
is
per diem per day.
per day, and if
It's not $15, $25.
no, there's no individual meal delineation.
Correct.
The question, and I believe, well, not question, clarification, which I want to make sure is, you said use it or lose it?
Correct.
So it's not technically a per diem, it's a reimbursement for actuals
Actuals
Right.
up to $100, right?
up to 100 per day. So
Per
it's
diem
not
is an amount
truly
you
a
would
per diem
get,
that you
right.
get automatically.
No, it
So
shouldn't.
it's a different,
Yeah.
so the clarification.
And I wanted to reflect that it's not a per diem, it's not an amount that each council member or member of staff gets. It's, this is what you're allowed to spend. If you spend it, then you spend it. If you don't spend it, and you hopefully spend underneath that amount, then you're only reimbursed for the amount that you spend. There's not, as you mentioned, you don't get change.
And the policy does require a substantiation with receipts for any
Receipts, yes.
expenditures, correct?
Absolutely, yes. So that is my motion.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we'll go to the oral vote. Councilman Colacott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Miles,
Yes.
Councilman Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pitts,
Yes.
Mayor Rossini.
Yes.
That passes by a 5-0 vote.
Item 16, Mayor and council member matters. Now it is time to hear individual council member information items, starting with council member Zimmerman.
Great. Thanks for hosting me from afar. I appreciate the accommodations, and I've thoroughly entertained the people here at the helm for the last hour or so. So I just wanted to say thanks, everybody. I wanted to comment on one meeting. The Rotary had their annual recognition dinner, or not dinner, but meeting this last week. And they highlighted all of the activities that Rotary has done over the past year under the presidency of Mark Bird, who's done a fantastic job. Linda Bartram, who's the youth chair, planned that meeting. We highlighted a couple people in our community who have done some spectacular things, both in their generosity. Namely, Brandon and Cassandra Gar got the Phil Hurwitz Award. We also awarded we got to see the awarding of the Rotarian of the Year, which was Pam Dunn. In past years, we've highlighted other businesses. We highlighted Colery's this year. So Rotary has done it was great to watch the Rotarians honor people in our community and then to talk about what they've done. So I highly recommend to our community to check out our Rotary, see what they do, and to participate if you are interested. So a little plug for the Rotary, I guess, but it was really great for our community. They really do a fantastic job. That was all my reporting for this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Miles?
So on Saturday, June 15th, I was invited by the Orange County Fire Authority to attend the 20th annual Flag Day Salute, and it was a fabulous evening. Got to sit at the OCFA table, interacted with a lot of community members, other fellow elected officials, got to hear the Honorable Steve Daines talk, and kind of fun because, when people were watching the Kavanaugh confirmations, and he was the individual that had to get back for his daughter's wedding. So it was kind of neat to hear him retell his story about, it was kind of fun. Anyways, it was a great evening. Really looking forward to the 4th of July parade that's being put on by the foundation. I hope everyone can attend, and just want to say I think our council is come a long way, and I'm very honored to serve, and want to say thank you to staff as well.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have a lot to offer tonight, other than I encourage everybody to come out for the 4th of July for the parade. I want to recognize Thomas Realty for their sponsorship of the event. They do a great job every year, and they're very thoughtful in their giving to the community. So I want to thank them for doing that, and appreciate it all.
Duly noted.
And the other thing too is safe and sane fireworks.
Yes.
We've all got to be careful with those. And also, at this time of year, watch out for kids, especially during the 4th of July parade and so forth. So that's safety's the utmost importance in the city right now. So just keep your eyes and ears open for the little ones.
Absolutely. Councilman Colacott.
Thank you. The City of Villa Park is a member of the Association of California Cities Orange County chapter, and they recently established a housing ad hoc committee, and our city manager, Steve Franks, and I have volunteered to participate in this committee. The purpose of this committee is to, rather than, or to address litigation or legislation under consideration in Sacramento regarding housing. And rather than provide knee-jerk oppositions to various legislative proposals, the objective is to develop proactive proposals to address housing in a white paper. And so Steve and I will be working with other representatives from other cities, and hopefully the county as well, in developing that white paper. For those of you that don't follow the news up in Sacramento closely, the legislature is being very proactive in developing legislation that would be very contrary to our way of life here in Villa Park. A lot of basically, it's almost like their view of is that the whole homeless problem and lack of affordability is due to cities. And so they want to fix it by taking away local control over land use and zoning requirements. So anyway, we're going to be working with the other cities, try to develop a white paper to provide some alternative or some proactive proposals so we can demonstrate that we in Orange County can figure this out ourselves and do a good job and help deal with homeless as it impacts Orange County and housing as it impacts Orange County in a way that best fits with Villa Park and the rest of Orange County. So thank you, Steve, for volunteering to participate in that. Our city manager is highly regarded throughout the county, and his input will be vital to helping us address these issues. Finally, I wanted to point out, I got this flyer in the mail, I think it was yesterday. It says, Unlock Your Home's Potential. And it's some firm is trying to encourage people to step up and turn their residences into a piggy bank and make some money off it as short-term rentals. Would like to remind our residents that our neighborhoods are for residential purposes only. We do not approve commercial activities such as motels, even very short-term motels in our residential neighborhoods. We have adopted an ordinance prohibiting short-term rentals. If you observe what you think might be a short-term rental, please contact our city offices here and report it, and we'll look into it. There are other cities that have allowed short-term rentals, thinking that they could back out of it, and they're having, like the city of Anaheim is having great difficulty in trying to undo their prior authorization of short-term rentals, which a lot of cities have found some real significant problems trying to manage short-term rentals and a real expense on those cities as well. So don't take the bait, and if you get it, if you think you've got a short-term rental going on in your neighborhood, let the city know about it. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. I don't have too much this evening. I wanted to remind some folks about an important date coming up. The Villa Park National Night Out and Home Security Fair is going to be at 5 p.m. on August 6th. It's a very well-attended event. I look forward to seeing everybody there. It's an important event for our community. I also want to remind people and touch on something that Mayor Pro Tem Pitts mentioned, safety. Safety of our children in our streets. Please drive as if your children were raised here, live here, and that, just be careful. I've seen a lot of people who are flying around town, and I get it. It's tough when you're running behind for a meeting or running late for work, but please, an ounce of prevention goes a long way. Summertime's here. It's not around the corner, it's actually here. We need to be careful around pools. Let's make sure our pools are safe. We're being very mindful of both young and old, of drowning incidents, and let's try to prevent that from happening in Villa Park this year. Furthermore, I just want to thank everybody for volunteering in our community in whatever capacity you're able to do so. Our volunteers are really the backbone of our community. We're elected 5 volunteers here, but really the bread and butter are our volunteers on our Community Services Foundation, our Law Enforcement Advisory Committee, Investment Advisory, all of the committees, infrastructure management. They are what make our community truly what it is. Rotary, of course, there's a number of other ones, and I apologize if I haven't mentioned you, but that is where the strength of our community comes. Our City Schools Advisory, all of our volunteers within the schools that are critically important to the well-being of Villa Park. So thank you, be safe, and have a wonderful summer. I look forward to seeing you all at the 4th of July parade. That's all I have. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Second?
So, all right. Do we need a roll call on that one, Steve? All right, good job.
Yes, adjourn.
Bye, Chad.
Did I beat you?
Bye, guys.